the Second Amendment, and gun control. Let's talk about that.
Man Up with Mark. Mark talks about everything under the sun. You may agree with him, and again, you may not.
Okay, first, I want you to notice I figured out how I could use this type of microphone and still have my mic flag somehow hooked up to it. Took me a while to figure out. Remember, on past episodes I had the mic flag sitting on top of my copier printer over there. It was really stupid. And, it only took me a couple of minutes to look at how this thing is set up and say, wait a minute, I know how to make this thing work. Yeah. Using my kidney here.
You're so smart. You're so effing smart.
Let's get back to the topic of the day. The Second Amendment and gun control. So, the problem with those two topics, they basically contradict each other. The Second Amendment is pretty simple.
You're right, it is simple.
Hell, it's barely 3 lines long. It reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed."
Boom.
Now, the Second Amendment is under debate with many people. Some people say that Second Amendment, let me say, some constitutional scholars will say, well, that whole amendment is basically based on the formation of a militia. And the right of the people to bear arms is there to create the militia. And other people will argue, no, it's 2 separate items in the same amendment, stating, yes, we need a well-regulated militia to secure our country, and also the right of the people to bear arms is separate. And when they say security of a free state, I think that means the country, state, the country, not individual states. There's that argument too, that people say that, well, that there means that you can regulate a militia for each state, like the National Guard. I don't think that's the case. Now, I'm not a constitutional scholar, so...
No, you are not.
I can't be 100% on that, but I think I'm pretty sure on that. So, at any rate, that there is the Second Amendment to the Constitution. It's pretty simple. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means you can't fuck with people when it comes to weapons. They have a right to have them, whether you like it or not.
I don't like it.
I like it.
Now, you get to the part of a majority of the people in this United States would like to see some sort of common sense, and I'm doing the air quotes with that common sense, gun control or gun safety laws. I think that terminology is misused. The guns themselves don't need to be safe. The humans using them need to be safe. But again, that's another argument that people have that goes down a left turn instead of straight ahead.
Go straight.
People are going back and forth. The Republicans and the Democrats, the independents, they're all arguing that we need to have common sense gun control, but not affecting the Second Amendment. All of the politicians out there, all of the goody two-shoes out there that are trying to figure out how to make this thing work out, they all say, we support the Second Amendment, but...
But what?
And that's the problem right there. Stop right there with the but. You can't support the Second Amendment and then want to control the purchase or the right to bear arms, weapons, guns, however you want to put it. Now, right now, there is a law that will not allow you to buy automatic weapons. Automatic weapons are like machine guns. You press the trigger and bullets come flying out. You don't have to press it, shoot, boom, press it, shoot, boom, press it. You just press it, a bunch of bullets come out. Did you like that sound effect? I kind of liked that sound effect. That was pretty good.
Sounds pretty good.
That law right there, in a sense, is infringing on the right to bear arms. Now, the Supreme Court said in a ruling that it was a long, complicated explanation that made absolutely no sense, that made it okay to restrict the purchase of automatic weapons unless you acquire a permit to purchase those weapons. I mean, if you go through a certain process, an application process, a deep background check, all sorts of things, you can then purchase them. So right there is kind of a loophole in that whole thing. Certain people can purchase automatic weapons. The other argument that I hear out there is that, well, the right to bear arms, that doesn't mean that you can go out and buy a cannon. Well, yeah, you can. Yeah. There's no legislation or no rules out there that says you can't go out and buy a cannon. You can go out and buy a tank. You can go out and buy an F-16. Or is it an F-35 now? Or is it an F-15? There's too many numbers with those F-jets,
You are confused.
But at any rate, you can go out and buy those. Now, are they disarmed in a way that, the weapons on those pieces of equipment can't be used? Yeah, probably. But is there a way that you can make them usable? Sure. Yeah, can be done. So that whole argument doesn't hold water. You can. The only weapon that you cannot buy as a normal average citizen is an automatic weapon, a machine gun. Also, right now, the law is you need to be 18 years of old to purchase a long gun, a rifle of any sorts, and you have to be 21 to buy a handgun. So, again, right there, when do you become a citizen of this United States?
When you are born.
Is it at 18 or is it at 21? Or is it before 18? Because with that law right there, you're being infringed in purchasing an arm.
Or leg.
You can't buy a handgun if you're 18. Some will argue, well, that's too young to have a handgun. If it's too young to purchase a handgun, it's too young to go to war. So that leads me down this other avenue.
Oh, shit. Shit.
Of gun control, gun safety versus the Second Amendment. We need to come to some commonality with weapons, with us owning and bearing weapons. We need to amend the Second Amendment. Or, in other words, repeal it and create a new amendment. I know, I can hear you already saying out there, well, Mark, Jesus Christ, that's doing an amendment takes forever. Oh, God, it's a slow process. It'll never happen. Yeah, bloody, bloody, bloody.
You yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, it's a process. And the United States government and its citizens have gotten lazy over the years. The 27 amendments that we have right now only took, well, I'll qualify this statement, 26 of the 27 amendments only took an average of 18 months to get ratified. The 27th Amendment, yeah, that took a little bit longer due to all sorts of circumstances. And that amendment was the pay raise for congressional members.
A raise? No.
It basically dropped from the interest of everybody and the government because there was so much flack about it. It just kind of dwindled off to the back burner for many, many years. And then it kind of got reignited back in the, late 80s. Hell, it started back in the early 1800s. They wanted to create this amendment. And it took 202 years for it to happen. That's an exception to the rule when it comes to the amendments. Now, would it take a long time to figure out an amendment to repeal the Second Amendment? Maybe. But holy shit, look how long it's taken for us to try to figure out a common sense gun law. We still don't have it. We're still arguing. And that argument has been going on since the 1700s, since soon after the enactment of the Second Amendment. In the original Constitution and Bill of Rights, after it was all enacted, not too many years had passed before someone started talking about, oh, we got to have gun safety. And that talk and that argument has been going on ever since. It was not until, 1934, when the law to curtail the sale of automatic weapons happened. That was in 1934, not too long ago. Before that, anybody and their mother could buy a machine gun.
Your mom?
So, right there in 1934, they infringed on the Second Amendment. And some people bitched and moaned, and some people didn't, and it fell on the back burner. Until lately, there was a federal court ruling here. There was a gentleman, I can't remember what the state it was. Forgive me on that.
No, I can't forgive you.
Nebraska or Kansas, whatever it was. He was hit with a lawsuit by the federal government for purchasing machine guns, machine gun parts. So he took him to court. He took it to court to dismiss the charges. And it went to the federal court in that district. And the judge ruled, yeah, U.S. government, this lawsuit is unconstitutional. This dude can purchase his machine gun and machine gun parts. Now, will that end up going to the Supreme Court again?
That doesn't make sense.
Probably. But, again, there's arguments out there that people have started saying, hey, wait a second, this machine gun law is bullshit.
That makes sense.
So now, that leads me back to, instead of arguing and fighting over the past years, decades, about gun safety and gun laws versus the Second Amendment, let's get serious and start talking about a 28th Amendment, a 29th Amendment. I don't know how many other amendment thoughts are out there. I've heard that there's probably about a half a dozen other topics out there that people want amendments formed. So, whether it be the 28th Amendment or 30th Amendment or whatever amendment it ends up, I think it should start.
Is that right?
Now, the governor of California, Mr. Newsom, recently, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but it was, I'm going to say it was in these recent years, he has applied for the 28th Amendment, which would not repeal the Second Amendment, but basically create a gun law amendment or a gun safety amendment. In the reading that I did do, it didn't mention anything about repealing the Second Amendment. This amendment was kind of an additional amendment, which would contradict the Second Amendment. So it couldn't be constitutional. So I don't think that amendment is going to go very far. What needed to be applied for or submitted was an amendment to repeal the Second Amendment, which would combine the not infringing the rights with, well, we also need to have these other rules. So however that could happen, however they would word it, that's the type of amendment that has to happen to repeal the Second Amendment, to be an amendment that is law in this United States that would make everybody happy. Now, would it make everybody happy? No. Do we need to make the majority of the people of these United States happy? Yeah, because to ratify an amendment, you got to have, 2/3 of Congress to agree and vote this thing in. And I think you need to have 3/4 of the United States, the individual states, to ratify this law for it to become an amendment. Is that a task? Yeah, that's a hell of a task. But it could be done. It's been done before in the past. I do have in front of me, the one thing I do have in front of me, in that Gavin Newsom amendment application, is the 4 main items in that amendment that he would like to have in it, which basically all 4 items in this amendment infringe on the Second Amendment. The 4 main items he brings up in this amendment are raising the federal minimum age to purchase a firearm, any firearm, long gun or handgun from 18 to 21. Right there I go back to my comment. If you're going to make a law that says you can't purchase a firearm until 21, you need to change an awful lot of other laws, like the Selective Service Law. Let's make that 21. Okay. The right to vote. Let's make that 21. If you can fight for your country and vote for the people that help run this country at 18, I think you can purchase a firearm. The other item is mandating a universal background check to prevent truly dangerous people, there's a cat, truly dangerous, from purchasing a gun that could be used in a crime. Too vague. Too vague. There already is a federal mandating universal background check. When you go to any dealership that sells guns, you go through a federal background check. You fill out this paper, they send it into the database, and it spits out whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, or a good girl or a bad girl. Don't want to be sexist here.
No, you don't.
So that already exists as far as the universal background check. And the whole la-di-da about gun shows not having to have background checks is a bunch of bullshit. You have to do they do a background check at a gun show. Every gun show does it. Now, do private sales do a background check? No. But if you're buying a gun through a dealer, whether it's in a store or whether it's through a gun show, there's a background check. And basically, they check to see if you're a felon, if you're a convicted felon, or if you're on the sex crime list, or there's a multitude of things that are checked through the database on the universal background check. That already happens. So, does it monitor whether a truly dangerous person could not get a handgun or a long gun? What is a truly dangerous person?
You scare me.
Anybody could be truly dangerous at any given time. So, that's too vague. Have to get rid of that. Have to change that. Number 3, institute a reasonable waiting period for all gun purchases. There you go. Maybe he's purposefully making these vague so that gives room to negotiate. Because this is vague. What's a reasonable waiting period? A day? 3 days? A week? What's the waiting period for? I mean, after you do the background check and you're cleared on that, what do you need to wait for? I think there are 4 states. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think there's 4 states that have no waiting period at all. One of them is Arizona.
Arizona moon, keep shining.
The state that I live in. You fill out your background check paperwork. They send it in. If it comes back clean and clear, you purchase the weapon, and out you go. There are other states that have other variations of a waiting period. I think some states do have a 3-day waiting period for handguns. I think long guns, certain states like Arizona, don't have any waiting period. Other states, I don't know if they have waiting periods, if they don't have waiting periods, but all of them do have the background check. The fourth item, barring civilian purchases of assault weapons that serve no other purpose than to kill as many people as possible in a short amount of time. Weapons of war that our nation's founders never foresaw. Well, I think our nation's founders kind of knew that weaponry would advance as years went on. I mean, from the weapons they had at that time to the caveman throwing rocks at each other, that kind of gave you an insight that things did advance and things will advance. So that doesn't hold water to me. The whole thing that the founders never foresaw, I don't think that's a good thing to put into any type of amendment. The whole thing about an assault weapon killing many people as possible in a short amount of time. Almost every weapon. No, I'm going to correct myself. Every weapon out there is an assault weapon. And if used properly, can kill many people in a short amount of time. What constitutes many? What constitutes a short amount of time? Again, very vague. Again, maybe on purpose. But shit like this goes against the Second Amendment in every way, shape, or form. So in order to make this gun safety amendment work, it would have to be encompassed with the Second Amendment. And however the gun safety and the Second Amendment could intermingle, that's what would repeal the Second Amendment. Right now, myself, I don't have a problem with all weapons being purchased at the age of 21. As long as you change laws as far as voting and the selective service. And probably a couple other things. The universal background check, it's there. It already happens. As far as the private sales, well, I don't know how you could mandate any type of federal background check on that. Who's going to monitor it? Who's going to enforce it? I don't think that's going to happen. Institute a reasonable waiting period. Well, again, I go with why wait? What's the reason for it? And it goes against the Second Amendment. You're infringing on that purchase. The waiting period is stupid.
You're stupid!
If somebody's going to use a gun, whether it's a handgun or a long gun, for a evil purpose, they'll wait the 3 days. They'll wait the month. They'll wait however long it takes them to get the gun. Or they'll go buy it illegally. It won't stop that evil person from doing an evil deed. They'll figure it out. The assault weapon thing, I'm tired of the assault weapon terminology. It's all horseshit. They got to give that up. Whoever argues that point has got to give it up. I didn't get into many different avenues of weapons as far as the amount of rounds in a magazine or bump stocks or the multitude of other items in the argument of armory that all of the politicians and talking heads and people out there talk about. I think we need to come together as a nation and say to our legislators,
Get your shit together, will you?
quit using each other as an excuse for not getting something accomplished. Let's start figuring it out. Hell, if we started this amendment process back when we started arguing about gun safety, something should have been figured out by now. It could have been figured out by now. Am I a person that worries about the nutballs out there that can get a hold of weapons? Yeah. But, again, the nutballs out there are going to get a weapon no matter what. Whether it's a law, whether it's an amendment, which basically is a law, however you try to regulate it, the bad people are going to get the things to make bad things happen. There you go. That's my thoughts on that. This lasted a little bit longer than I thought it would. Before I go, please, if you would, donate to my Patreon page to keep this silly-ass podcast rolling. That Patreon page is at patreon.com/manupwithmark. Also, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And, like always, you can send me an email at mark@manupwithmark.com. Till tomorrow. See ya.
If you have a question or comment, email Mark at manupwithmark.com.